Hello everyone, and welcome back to another figure review. Today, we're taking a look at the second release from this year's San Diego Comic-Con event exclusive lineup, the S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball Super Jiren Final Battle. While not second on my must-have list for this year's exclusives, he is second in order after Goku according to the brown shipper. Like Goku and Trunks, he is still available for pre-order as of writing this review. So if you want to avoid the scalpers, get your pre-orders in now and patiently wait till February of next year. But I'm sure some of you are impulsive like me and are wondering, is he worth adding to your collection right now for that extra premium? Spoilers, no he's not. That's it, that's the video. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace. Okay, I'm being slightly facetious. Jiren here is not that bad of a figure, but I do have some minor gripes with him if you'll let me humor you for a bit. So with that said, let's get into the actual review so y'all can make the decision for yourselves if he's worth picking up today, waiting 7 months, or skipping entirely. Starting with the packaging, the box for Jiren is going to be done in the same negative contrast as the other event exclusives, with Tamashi's color of choice being pink to expose Jiren. The right side of the box continues that monochromatic image of Jiren with the full color image of that image. The back side of the box gives us a look at what all comes bundled with Jiren and what to expect when posing him around. Side note, I'm really digging the background gradient they went with here. It's a very nice touch. The left side of the box gives us another monochromatic image of Jiren with the name of the release being clearly visible. Here's a quick look at the top. And bottom to round out the packaging. For the paint detail on Jiren, I'm absolutely loving the execution of the finish on this guy. In my update video, I mentioned I was looking forward to seeing this in person, and Tamashi, you didn't disappoint. Jiren's gray skin is going to have a pinkish red tone to it with flashes of violet shading along the musculature to add some depth to those sculpted details. His pants are going to be done in maroon instead of black, and his gloves and boots are in off-white, all of which are coated in a red pearlescent flake, and in my opinion, is beautiful. As for the faces, the expressions are done perfectly, and there's no denying who you're looking at when you see them either. I mean, I at least hope so, that y'all know this is Jiren. Anywho, Jiren's musculature and tattered clothing are nicely sculpted, and it's something I wish Tamashi would give us more of, and that's more battle-damaged characters. We all know that if a character goes shirtless in Dragon Ball, it's about to go down. I do want to stress a bit of caution for those of you that do get this figure, that what's left of his upper jumpsuit and his gloves are going to be a bit sharp, so do be careful grabbing those portions of the figure. The only thing off-putting about this figure is going to be his knees. They are not the same finish as the rest of his outfit, so in certain poses or lighting, the knees will stick out like a, well, sore knee. Now, when compared side by side with the original Final Battle Jiren, it goes without saying that you're going to notice the difference in the color palettes. However, upon closer inspection, you're going to notice that the finish is a little more glossy or slick feeling in hand for the event exclusive, and the original will have a bit of a matte texture to him. That said, they both do suffer from the same discolored knee issue for whatever reason. But at least the event exclusive is not as noticeable, right? Yeah, at least it has that going for it. As far as quality control, I didn't have the original unboxed until I did this review, so before I thought the quality on the SDCC Jiren was kind of weird feeling, if that makes sense. I think it was because I wasn't expecting the chest to be hollow and the legs to have some heft to them, but that's besides the point. It wasn't until I unboxed the original Jiren that I quickly realized that he had some issues. Like many before me, my OG Jiren suffered from a stiff waist that I quickly took some shock oil to, and I also had a loose left leg that somehow magically got better the second I popped it off and put it back on. Look, I don't know man, the early Vietnamese quality is all over the place. Oh, and speaking of, this event exclusive is made in Vietnam. So if you still have some reserves about the quality issues with the Vietnamese releases, and you don't want to buy the figure because of it, I don't blame you. I do want to say though, that it is getting better, it's just taking them some time. But with that said, the event exclusive Jiren took care of a lot of those issues. Right out of the box, the waist moves around with hardly any creaking or stiffness, and the legs aren't wobbling all over the place. The only issues I can find with the joints are his bicep swivels and right ankle. Jiren's bicep swivels are just a little too tight for my liking, and the ankle is a bit loose, and because of it, it's caused him to topple over when trying to get him in poses. And we'll cover that a little more when we get into the articulation section. But with the paint detail out of the way, let's take a look at what all comes packaged with this release. While not as jam-packed as either Goku or Trunks, he at least comes with everything from his original release. We get 3 extra head sculpts for a total of 4, 3 extra sets of hands for a total of 4, and his Kadon effect piece. For the faces we get the default stern face, a teeth gritting face, a shouting face, and a constipated face. Besides the 2 fists that come attached, we get 2 hands for swatting away attacks, 2 splayed out hands, and 2 clenched hands. As for the Gadon effect piece, it fits firmly into the left-handed Jiren and is done in a translucent orange much like the original that came with the OG release. I just wish the effect was ambidextrous. Now, as for what I believe the figure is missing, that's obvious. An aura effect piece. I would have loved to have seen one specifically for Jiren here. We got one with the NYCC Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku and the NYCC Broly that were both done in a pearlescent finish. Just feels like a missed opportunity given the fact that the figure is $25 cheaper than this year's Goku. But if you're wanting to pick up a red aura from Tamashii Nations, Big Bad Toy Store still has them available for under 30 USD. Anywho, let's move on to the articulation. Alright, let's get into the articulation here for Jiren. Right off the bat, this is how a shirtless Dragon Ball figure should be done. He's got great range of motion, and he really doesn't have any drawbacks when it comes to posing up top. Down below, that's another story. But overall, he is an improvement over the 2020 version of himself, with one or two setbacks when you compare him to the original, and we'll talk about it as we go. Starting with the head and working our way down, Jiren is going to be on a double ball peg that has a pedestal base for the head, and it is keyed to only go on a certain way, as you can see. So it's kind of hard to mess that up. And if you manage to get around that, let me know. I'm actually kind of curious. Anywho, so with that said, Jiren can rotate his head around fairly effortlessly, and he could do a full 360. As far as the neck joint goes, you can get Jiren to look down pretty far. Looking up, a little bit greater than neutral. You do get a little bit of side to side, but this is where I start running into some issues with the original, or excuse me, the reissue versus the original. You can get it to lean side to side, but it's just kind of sketch because of how tight the tolerance is in this area. When you compare it to the original, this Jiren, all day. Look at this, all day. It's very solid. So keep that in mind. And I also would not try moving, if it's really stiff on you, giggity, I would not try moving that around with the head on, because then you're going to be tempted to want to put pressure on the head, and that can cause strain on that ball peg. So do be mindful and be very careful. Moving on to the shoulders, Jiren here has some of the best butterfly joints I have ever seen on an S.H.Figuarts. Right up there, honestly, with the legendary Super Saiyan Goku. Jiren can get these out pretty far. He can give himself a hug, no problem. You do run into some gapping when you do this, so be mindful of it, but, I mean, this is still pretty good. You get some Macho Man poses going on and stuff. It's really good. You'll see that later in the video as well, too. For the shoulders, they rotate a full 360. We do get a T-pose. It's pretty good. The point of contention I had with the bicep swivels, you can kind of hear it. They are a little tight, and they don't articulate very well unless you separate them and put a little shock oil to them. This one here was really tight on me, and it creaked quite a bit whenever I would try moving it. Since I separated it and lubed everything up with some silicone oil, I can rotate it a full 360, no problem. And you can hear there's no creaking. Here, you can hear it. It's still there. That's because it's trying to rub up against itself, so be mindful of it. The elbows are double jointed, and we do have double ball pegs for the wrist pegs. So doesn't give you the most range when moving the hands around, but especially when you swap them over to the more splayed out hands or clenched hands, you can't get them to pose the way you want them to. It's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. For the chest, Jiren can crunch forward pretty darn good and lean back just as good. Actually, even better. When you start taking the waist into consideration, he can lean back further, and he can crunch forward a lot further too. You're not going to get any kind of side to side or pivot up top. It's all going to be down here at the waist. And again, this isn't as creaky or as tight as it was on the 2020 version, but you can kind of hear it is a little creaky for me when moving side to side. But it's not like creaking stiff. It's just probably would benefit from some shock oil there too. So we'll move on to the legs. Jiren can kick out a little less than 90 degrees. And kicking back, I'll do it on this leg here. I'll even kick this one forward so you can see. It's less than 45 here, less than 90 here. It's not the greatest. Doing the splits is greater than 45, but not 180 degrees all the way. I do want to point out that because these are sharp, if you dig into it, like if you really try and force it and you dig into the leg, it will scratch it. It will cause paint transfer. So be very, very mindful and very careful. The upper biceps, or excuse me, the upper thigh swivel is there. It's very nice. We have double jointed knees. And we do have very solid ankle joints for the left ankle, but the right ankle, that's my loosey-goosey one. The one that keeps causing Jiren to fall over. So be mindful of that. I mean, yours probably isn't as bad as mine, or it could be worse, but on my copy, this is the culprit for all the times my Jiren has taken a fall. And as far as rotating the ankles in, that's what that looks like. And out is about like that. So, overall, Jiren here is everything that I would want in a shirtless figure. The only thing that would make him better, and I know that, you know, we got it this year, was a more of a softer piece of plastic for the buttocks, so you can move the legs back further. Goku here takes care of a lot of that because of the softer material that they used for the buttocks. So if Jiren had that, he would be perfect in my opinion. And if the wrist pegs weren't as short and stubby and limiting the articulation factor of the arms, or excuse me, the hands, it would be much better. But this is still the king of articulation when it comes to just the range of motion that this guy has. I honestly would argue, aside from Broly when it came to how they did him, this is the guy that paved the way for this guy, without a doubt. And also paved the way for most of our 3.0 figures when you start thinking about it. The lower half of the figure is very reminiscent of 3.0 architecture. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the comparisons, and then close out the video with the closing thoughts. For the comparisons, here's Jiren next to Super Saiyan Son Gohan, the fighter who surpassed Goku. The Toyotaro edition of Ultra Instinct Goku. This year's San Diego Comic-Con event exclusive Goku. And the other San Diego Comic-Con event exclusive Trunks. So for my closing thoughts on Jiren here, it's about what I expected for this release. And I definitely think Tamashii played it safe. No new faces or accessories, it's literally a one-to-one of the original that's sporting a new color scheme. And for that, his rank as my number 3 pick stays the same. But that doesn't mean he's a bad figure. As I've mentioned throughout the review, the paint apps are nice, the sculpt and joints are solid, and most of the QC issues folks had with the original have been addressed, for the most part. But there's just something I'm not completely vibing with when it comes to this release. Maybe it's because this Jiren or the original weren't releases that necessarily screamed, I've gotta have it. Now for some of you, that may not be the case. Personally, Super never really sucked me in the way that Z did growing up, heyo. But in all seriousness, Jiren as a character just isn't what I would call interesting. I can't remember who said it best, but Jiren's just another tough guy for Goku to fight, and that's it. Another hurdle that our protagonist must overcome with some random ass pull within the allotted time during the Tournament of Power, and then we never see him again outside of Dragon Ball Heroes. I guess you could say the same about Z Broly not being interesting, but Broly did it first. And I think the only time during Super Syndication that I can really recall myself clenching my seat, waiting in anticipation for the next episode, was during the Future Trunks arc. And even then, that conclusion still bothers me to this day. and we'll gladly talk about it when we get to Trunks. But for this Jiren as a figure, he's a solid release. I know many people, me included, weren't really feeling this being an event exclusive. He is, however, a timely release to coincide with the Toyotaro Ultra Instinct Goku that we got back in May, and also the reissue that's coming out later this November. So Tamashii knows what they're doing here. That said, if you don't own this figure, it's an easy pickup if you're needing a Final Battle Jiren to go alongside your Ultra Instinct Goku in the display. Like many other event exclusives, I view this figure as a way for newer collectors to play catch-up that are just now getting into the hobby. And if you have the original and don't need this figure, then you can safely pass on it, Bubba. But if you're a completionist like me, then you'll want at least one. So get him if you must, whether that's through Premium Bandai or third-party sites like eBay, but if he's not a must-have of the day figure, wait and give yourself some time to think about it until February of 2025 when the market becomes saturated with the second edition run before making your purchase. I imagine you'll find a better deal by then. But if you had to ask me, event exclusive, original, which one should I get? I'd say go for the event exclusive. It's going to be a little bit on the cheaper side. And that's going to bring us to the end of the review. I want to thank you, the viewer, for making it to the end. If you haven't already, kindly hit the like button and subscribe as it helps me out and keeps the channel growing. Plus, I've got other reviews up and more to come. And I'd also like to hear your thoughts on Jiren. Do you plan on getting it, passing on it, love it, hate it? I'd love to hear it all. Next will be the event exclusive Trunks, and once that's done, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program. But as always, this has been Talib Reviews, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.